Hey everybody, Jim and Josh are here to break down the very new first look at the red costume from Marvel's Daredevil.
About time we got this thing. We've
Right?
seen the black one, which we're seeing here, but there's the red
Dun, dun, dun,
one.
dun, dun. Okay, so what do you think, Joshua?
Um,
First
I
impression.
I think it's cool. I don't immediately love it because it's not like when I first saw Deadpool's costume, like from the new Ryan Reynolds movie. I was completely ecstatic for
Oh
how
yeah,
like awesome, like right from the comic books. This looks like they obviously invented something new to make it more practical. It looks cool, but I think I'll have to wait to see the whole thing before I make my full judgment. What about you?
yeah. I mean, I like it. I'll be honest, it wasn't what I was expecting. I was actually surprised that it did deviate as much from the comics. I'm getting kind of used to Marvel, kind of doing it right from the books, But I think in this case, my biggest question, the thing that really immediately jumped out at me, wasn't really the chainmail thing so much as the mask. So let's start with
Let's start at the
literally
top.
start at the top.
Yes, so I think the first thing people would wonder about are those horns on the top of his head? It
Yeah,
definitely look like he has two,
yeah,
protrusions up there. If we see as he
yeah.
turns
They're
his head.
pointing. They're pointing forward. To me, my first thought was, well, do they perhaps serve some sort of like actual a functional purpose? Like, is there some sort of like, I don't know, sonar or something, some little thing in there because his ears are covered to help him hear better, something that would augment his surroundings for him.
I think there's two like vanity horns because he's the devil of
Probably.
Hell's Kitchen. You know what I mean? Just like
Yeah.
he's putting them on there to warn people as like a symbol, kind of like Nolan's Batman. They kept harping, hitting us over the head about that metaphor.
It's about justice.
Yes.
Now, another thing about the mask is that it's multiple pieces.
Oh yeah.
That I think is another thing that's kind of perhaps pulled me out of it a little bit. If you look a little bit at it, it does look like Batman. Something about almost like the eyebrow looking thing. It kind of, in a weird way, it kind of reminds me of Adam West's Batman, the way he had his eyebrows drawn on.
Oh goodness, what have they done?
But I am wondering why the mask is like that. They're showing like the seams essentially.
Yeah, I don't. I think adding some sort of texture to it like helps make it look a little more real world. It almost looks like a helmet.
Yeah.
Which is really interesting. And also, let's look at the eyeballs. When the light catches it, it looks like they're not. We're not looking at his eyes. It looks
Yeah.
like there's sort of a sunglass.
Yeah, they just look like goggle
Shade.
lenses.
Yeah.
You can see his eyes through them though, so it is just basically like just tinted lenses. Because if he moves his head a little bit, you can kind of make out the irises and stuff like that,
Huh.
which I guess is good for the actor to be able
Yeah.
to emote and all that.
Yeah. I
But
almost like the black version, which has. I'm gonna scroll back here a little bit to it. The like no eyeballs. What if it was the red one, like this? We just couldn't
Yeah.
see. It's almost unsettling that you're fighting a guy who can't see.
yeah,
But this
yeah,
one, yeah, he actually has the
yeah.
eyes.
Actually, doesn't that kind of take away? Yeah, that bit of element of surprise or advantage. You're like, how the hell is this guy fighting me if he can't see? Maybe he's tipping his hand too much that he's blind by not, showing eyes.
Yeah.
Now, I do like the basically the black kind of tunic that's underneath it. It reminds me of like medieval knights, the way that they would have those
Yeah.
kind of chainmail tunics with a
Yeah.
hood, and
Maybe
then
that's
put
like
their helmet
Kevlar
over
lace
it.
or something
Yeah.
like that. Yeah,
And
it
also,
makes sense to fight crime if you're just a normal person with no superhuman durability like Thor or Captain America. That you need like little extra padding, little extra armor.
yeah, and also, I mean, we did know that this was going to be a costume that was basically piecemeal, stuff that he could buy off the internet, buy at stores, Army Navy stores, and it does kind of that black tunic does kind of remind me a little bit of like commandos, like World War II commandos, that kind of
Yeah.
stuff that they would wear, like I think frogmen and stuff like that.
Maybe he went into that Captain America museum at the end of Winter Soldier and stole it and dipped it in red. And
Yes,
then...
it was actually it was a Howling Commandos outfit.
Yes.
Now, what do you think about like the like it's interesting that we're seeing like the not screws but like fasteners and stuff like that
No, I think
throughout the
that's
costume.
again another like step towards making it look a little more practical. Look at the comic books. If they pretty much took a naked person, I'm not the first person to have said this, but they just pretty much take a naked person, paint them a color, and put a little design like element
Yeah.
on that, like the double D. Also interesting, the double D is not on like the Daredevil
Yeah.
symbol is not on his chest. Like in the comic
But
books.
it makes me
And
wonder,
so
like, how does he
to bring
get
it into
in
the
and out
real
of this?
world and have someone operate in it, it makes sense to have them,
Yeah.
in in that. So
And it
yeah.
also, I mean, the fact too that he has like that uh, tunic, clearly now he'll be able to move his head. He won't have any Batman issues. And actually, if you look at it, it looks like the black kind of on the shoulders kind of come up almost like a collar.
Yeah.
So it's like he's just putting on an armored jacket, and it probably does that just zip up right in the front?
I don't know how he puts it on, but so let's do the big.
Why don't you?
We'll
You
see
can't tell
we'll see
just from
the
this?
dressing and undressing thing later. But let's do the big comparison everyone wants to the movie one with Daredevil.
Ben Affleck, basically in his glorified biker outfit.
Yes. So obviously this one has a shiny, plasticky leather look to it.
He had the double D on his
He
chest.
did have it, yeah.
I think the biggest thing that pulled people out of this was the fact that he could basically pop his collar. Like, there are images of him with his throat covered. But I will say, I mean, the mask looks like Daredevil. It looks like the
this
comic
looks
book
like
version.
Daredevil.
But there's not like some augmented kind of musculature in the suit or anything like that.
This looks more like sort of, I think, at a time in superhero movies where they're just trying to like get the look right and make them look like a sort of a sex symbol kind of icon.
Yeah, everyone was in leather suits in the early 2000s.
Yeah, whereas the other one is much more practical.
Yeah, much more of almost a military vibe to it. But I'd have to say though that it does look like the horns in this one clearly are just more for affectation. I'm still curious about the horns in that suit if it doesn't serve a purpose like their antenna or something.
Boom. Well, we'll have to wait and see for that. But yeah. So another thing is when we first heard that Daredevil was going to have some black on his costume, that it was going to look like this. This is the Fall from Grace Daredevil from back in the 90s, which does look a little bit extreme with like the armor and stuff like that.
Looks very 90s.
But
very
as you can
ugly.
see, it's like there's a black undersuit with like red armor plates and then some like silver armor on top of that.
Yeah.
And so I actually think that actually makes sense, even though this looks a little ridiculous.
Pieces, yeah.
So I think this is maybe was a sort of an influence on the costume. As you can see, like we haven't seen the full costume yet, but there's the black like underlay.
Right.
So I'm wondering how much more black there is.
I bet you the trousers and the boots are probably black.
Okay, I could see that. Yeah, but and of course there is another person who has a sort of an underlay we want to compare him to.
Yeah, I mean, the Christian Bale Dark Knight and Dark Knight Rises costume is the thing that kind of jumped to mind for a lot of us. The fact that it is, pieces of stuff kind of put together. It's just not one whole suit, and that there is that sort of almost like mesh kind of armored tunic kind of thing going on underneath the chainmail.
Yeah, and even like the chest piece, like you're saying, is sort of like piecemeal together.
Yeah.
Like this is many parts put together to make a suit.
Even
you can turn your neck.
I mean, even the fact on both masks with the kind of sculpted expression, or at least that sort of beaky kind of brow that they have going on there.
Yeah, but I will say Batman has he's got the bigger horns.
Well, it's interesting in a weird way. It's also kind of like the Ben Affleck Batman with the smaller horns, and I think if memory serves, doesn't Affleck's bat horns kind of tilt forward the way the Daredevil horns do on this one? I think they do.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah.
There's another Affleck connection.
Yeah, and of course in the comic books, there's in the recent run by Mark Waid, he goes, someone sees Daredevil and he goes, "Oh my gosh, Red Batman!" And it kind of is like that. They're very
I don't think they're going to say they don't want that kind of comparison. But it's also interesting. Like, all right, is this something that came in red? Was it spray painted red? I have a feeling he just bought like red armor. I wonder like what real world kind of analog there is to this. Like, did he just buy like a fencing outfit or something?
I bet it will be to honor his father, the boxer, and because his name was like Battling Jack Murdoch, but he also I think went by like Jack the Devil Murdoch. So maybe just to honor his father, who was killed, by crime bosses, part of his origin. It inspires him to don this look. And so while that's actually part of his origin, and our final image here for comparison, this is actually the last page from Daredevil, the Man Without Fear, by Frank Miller and John Romita Jr. and we don't see this red costume until the final page. So I'm wondering if that's why they've been teasing out.
Well, yeah, because
the
that
look for
Man
so
Without
long.
Fear is the biggest influence on Marvel's
Yeah.
Daredevil
Yeah.
Netflix series.
And a big thing that I want to point out about this is, like, look how he's shaded. Like, he's wearing a all red costume head to toe, but it's primarily shaded black, and that's lets them like accent out the detail. So,
Right.
and every time you see Daredevil, he's primarily black. So I think that's another reason why when you look at this image and it has so much black on it, like, they need to create the black, because you obviously can't shade him like you can
Yeah.
on a comic book page.
And also, like, we saw in the Affleck image, there is something about just that all red outfit. I don't know, it's a little dorky. You try to make it look cool, but yeah, putting in the black parts of the costume, it works. It gives it something that your eye can kind of break it up a little bit. Another thing too about that sort of like chainmail thing around his neck is it'll protect him from like somebody trying to like slit his throat or garrot him
No,
or something.
totally. He needs that protection. He also needs that flexibility. He's a red ninja. He's red Batman. He needs to do jumps and flips and turn his neck and do stuff.
All right. Well, guys, let us know what you think of this new red costume for Daredevil. And for all things on Marvel's Daredevil, keep it here on IGN.